A very, very warm welcome to you all this afternoon. We're delighted to welcome you to the webinar today, and we hope that you will leave this session enthused about the programmes, certainly more knowledgeable about the programmes and all the different aspects that they can offer you for your professional learning, and that any questions that you've got, hopefully we will have answered them by the end. If not, we will send out some frequently asked question answers to you kind of later on. So for today then, very much to start about who we are, what we do, and the programmes that you will be applying for our spring 2022 intake. And just very recently, in the last couple of days, we've been starting off with the new Mpqs. Last week I did 3 sessions, 2 in London and 1 international. So as well as doing my partnership role and everything, I also am a facilitator. So both Laura and I can kind of see it from all aspects, which is a real privilege for us. So, okay, best practice network, very much what is important to us as an organisation are our values. We hold those values and everybody in the organisation holds those values. We do all work together, the whole team. It's about inspiring you as learners on your journey. Whichever Mpq you have, you will find that the whole team walks alongside you in your learning, but we're very much, our materials, the way that we deliver, our blended learning approach is about inspiring you to learn. We work together, absolutely. As I say, you will have a team that walks alongside you through your Mpq journey, and that team holistically acts with integrity. We are always striving for excellence, and feedback is a core part of what we do, that QA process with every single session that we do, and constantly things are made, tweaked and made better for you. We've been delivering school-led CPD since 2012, and as you can see there, 14,000 participants over the last 3 years alone. And numbers are rising, but what we will not compromise on at best practice is the quality of our delivery for you. As a participant on Mpqh, you are our prime concern, that we are delivering the very best that we possibly can for you, because we're about getting the best leaders in our schools, and in that way we're getting the best people in front of our staff teams, but also in front of children, which is what we're about. Okay, so some of you will know, if we can go to the next slide, Laura, please, that the new Mpqs have come about through this new, clearer pathway for everybody in schools. So the Mpq ML, as we used to know, has disappeared, and has been replaced by 3 new specialist qualifications. But these all are part of a very clear professional pathway, which starts with the trainee teacher, as we can see there, the left-hand side on the bottom, going through then to the early career framework for our early career teachers, and then to those specialist Mpqs, and then further on to our leadership Mpqs, the SL, the H, and the EL. So very structured frameworks. If you want to have a look at those frameworks, the DFE frameworks are all available on their website. And if you are seriously thinking about applying, and we hope you are, but if you're seriously thinking about applying, a good idea would be to have a little look at those frameworks, which will really show you how the learning unfolds. The same language also runs across that framework. So the Learn That and the Learn How To's that start with trainee teachers and their ITT courses goes right the way through to Mpq EL. And obviously the DFE are wanting teachers who are doing these qualifications to be very clear about what they're learning and how to then apply apply that learning. So it's very much that rehearsing your learning, practicing your learning, and then applying your learning. And that's, as I say, goes throughout all those Mpqs. All of them are about helping you to develop your expertise so that you can make that difference to your school, to the young people in your school, but also to your locality by sharing, by networking across the piece. The programs, and all of them, and we'll say this right up the front, is they will challenge you. And we challenge you on purpose, because as we all know, if we stay in that comfort zone of learning, then we don't grow. It's when we're pushed a little bit into that zone, which is a little bit uncomfortable, we get that new learning and then grow exponentially. So a very, very clear pathway, and I'm very excited about the specialist Mpqs, because for those of you who, perhaps do not aspire to that senior leadership in schools, they give you a wonderful broad offer to develop yourselves and to keep that interest in professional learning. So just to go to the next slide, if we can, Laura, and look then at what are those 6 programs. So here we have Mpq Leading Teacher Development. So that is for those who aspire to lead the development of other teachers. So perhaps those who've got a CPD lead within a school. There's Mpq Leading Teaching for those who are or aspire to lead teaching in a subject, a year group, key stage or phase. And of course, both of those may be applicable to those of you who are mentors in school. Something to think about there for you. There's also Mpq Leading Behaviour and Culture for those of you who are leading behaviour, culture and or pupil well-being. So perhaps you've got a pastoral role within school. And don't forget that all these Mpqs, are applicable to any phase, any key stage. So when you apply, obviously in your application form, we will look to see where you are, what your phase is, and we can then apportion you to groups appropriate to that level of interest and phase. So we then go on to the more familiar, the Mpq for Senior Leadership, and that becomes where we're leading across a school. So those of you who have got more responsibility within a school and are beginning to have that more of a helicopter view across the school, if you like. Then we've got Mpqh still, for those of you who are aspiring to be head teachers, and that very much is about moving your thinking from the operational to much more of a strategic level across the school. And then, of course, executive leadership, Mpqel, which is increasingly popular for those of you who are leading across more than one school or who are moving towards leading across the school. Very, very important that I've touched a little bit on your application, and Michelle will give us some more input on that later. But when you do put that application in, to get as much detail as you can in about your phase. For all of the Mpqs, the DFE have taken on board workload issues. So the specialist Mpqs take place over 12 months. The senior leadership, headship and executive leadership Mpqs take place over 18 months. For all the Mpqs, there is no longer the need to have projects. For Mpqh, there is no project in school and no project in a placement school, and the same for executive leadership. So those have gone, and it's now assessed through a final assessment, which is a case study. It will be an unseen case study that is of no more than 2,500 words. And you will have 8 days to respond to that case study with 1,500 words. So very much, it's a much more manageable program now. still with rigour, still with challenge, and absolutely still with depth. But the assessment arrangements are very, very different. And so it's much, much more of that kind of drip effect across the qualifications. And as I said before, it's very much more about rehearsing, practicing, and applying your learning across those courses. So very, very different, a little bit more time so that you can obviously get more from your qualification as you go through the time on the course. So what's the impact of doing an Mpq? And I'm going to pass over now to Kylie Spark, who is a very, very well respected head teacher, who's going to give her point of view, not only from somebody who did Mpqh a few years ago, but also on that impact on the teachers within her schools. Kylie, over to you.
Evening, everyone. Thank you. My involvement with Mpq has been from both sides, as well as Sally has said. So I've been involved in delivering Mpq and facilitating for about 10 years now. But also I've had a number of staff in the schools that I'm across as an executive head, but also in some of the schools I've supported in my NLE role, and I've seen them being involved in the Mpq as well. So with both hats on, I've seen the impact of Mpq, whether it's the specialist or ML as it was, or the senior or the H. There's a few points I would perhaps like to make about why I think leaders should consider, and you on this call tonight should really consider actually applying for and being involved in one of the Mpqs. For me, there's a number of things that it brings. First of all, time, and the time to stand back from the day job and reflect upon the quality of your practice, quality of leadership, depth of leadership, and think about what it is you're trying to achieve. Sometimes we get on this hamster wheel of our what of we're doing, what we have to do. But actually the Mpqs give you a chance to stand back and really think about your why and your how, as well as the what you're doing. And that comes through all threads of the programme, whether it's the online or the face-to-face. My role as facilitator has been on the face-to-face, and certainly my experience of those days they are invaluable. The opportunity, as I say, to give time away from school, time to stand back and reflect and be strategic in whatever level of leadership you're involved in, but also to meet with colleagues who are at a similar point in the career as you. So you're talking with colleagues at that same point. But the expert facilitators that best practice have ensure that challenge is there. And Sally said this for the importance of challenge. I can't agree enough about that. We have to challenge ourselves to really think deeply, to really understand our own leadership style, our own leadership action, and actually what needs to be the right next steps for us based on the why, and then really thinking about our how. For me, leadership isn't particularly necessarily the what you do. It actually comes down to the how you do it. And that's what Mpqs give you that opportunity to do. With my own executive head teacher hat on and seeing colleagues and members of my school teams who have been involved in Mpqs, the impact has really been quite profound. For some people, it has given exactly that time and space to really stand back and reflect. And the impact on the how they go about their role in school has been really quite transformational. For other colleagues, particularly those that have been doing the H, I've seen it's been a real springboard for promotion and moving on to headship, not just because it's something to put on the CV, but because the Mpqh course and the rigour within that really is enabling for people to then go on and be ahead. So whether you're thinking about headship now, or even whether you're in the early headship, often I've seen people who are already in headship do Mpqh in those early stages of headship, and again have found this course absolutely invaluable. And I have seen hundreds of people over the years particularly do Mpqh and really use that to springboard their own professional development and their effectiveness as a school leader. So I can't recommend highly enough. I've been involved working with Best Practice Network and particularly Yvonne for, as I say, about 10 years now. I have got so much from working with this organisation, certainly with my head teacher hat on. Fantastic backroom support from Best Practice, fantastic facilitation and resources, both online and in person. And we continue to have staff in our schools on these courses, because they really do make a difference. So I commend them to you tonight.
Thank you so much, Kylie. That was hugely insightful from my perspective, as well as everybody else attending. Really brilliant to hear about the sort of the rigour that it's given to you and to your colleagues, and the power of the style of learning. And I think with these new MPQs, what you get is an even greater push towards linking the research with the application to practice. So we'll be picking up on that shortly. So thank you so much, Kylie. That was fantastic. So this slide gives you a timeline of the approximate hours that your programme will take you over either the 12-month or 18-month period, depending on whether you take a specialist route programme or a leadership route programme. There are 3 stages to all of the programmes. Stage 1, induction. Stage 2 is the development stage, which is the main section of time that you will be on whilst on programme. And stage 3 is the summative assessment stage that Sally referenced earlier. These 3 stages are common to all 6 of the MPQs. And this slide demonstrates the number of hours for the specialist programme specifically. The following slides that Sally will go through demonstrate the number of hours for the leadership programme, so you'll see the differences there. Just to draw out a little bit of information about the induction stage, it's underpinned by a needs analysis skills audit, and you're probably going to hear this several times. This needs analysis provides a really critical platform for your discussions with your coaches, your mentors and your facilitators. And the needs analysis is really critical because it forms the basis for the powerful conversations that Kylie and Sally have referenced that you'll be having throughout the entirety of your programme. As well as the feedback and direction that are going to inform your choices and your depth of study in your online courses. So it's vital that you take the time after your application with that needs analysis during the induction stage. And we encourage you to spend a great deal of time on it. It's going to give you the ownership of the pathway as you move through that meaty development stage and into the summative assessment stage. And that initial needs analysis approach will then continue throughout the programme through your use of what we've been calling the LDR, the Leadership Development Record. And that's a working document that records your new learning and your progress as you go through. Sally likes to describe it as a document that walks alongside you to record and narrate your leadership growth journey. So as I mentioned, this slide specifically focuses on the number of hours for the specialist programmes, and then the next 3 slides offer the hours comprising the SL, the H and the EL. So Sally, do you want to add anything about the leadership route at this point?
Yeah, I would just add in then that obviously you can see that there are more hours, you know, that's not rocket science, you can see that on the slide. And of course, don't forget that these are now done over the specialist 12 months, the leadership over 18 months. And again, you know, the DFE are very, very mindful, believe it or not, of workload. And so, you know, when you look at that average over 18 months, you know, it's not hugely onerous. As much as anything else, you will get out of the MPQs what you put into them. And of course, there is a program structure. It's blended learning. So there is that combination of face-to-face, then the online study. You will have formative assessment tasks to do, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. And you will also have coaching. Now, for the specialist routes, you'll have an online mentor, an in-school performance coach, and of course, the other person who will be supporting you on your journey is a face-to-face facilitator. When it comes to the leadership routes, you will have a leadership performance coach who works with you not only in small groups or face-to-face, but also online. And they really will be walking alongside that program with you. And again, we're going to go into the hourage of that in more detail in a moment. So very much if we just click to the H, then Laura, people can see the difference in hours for the H. And the case study at the bottom, you will read no more than 2,500 words, and will respond to that with no more than 1,500 words. The case study will be unseen, and it will be a different case study for every intake of the Mpqs. So I know we've already got some questions in the chat about that, but the thinking and the idea and the program is designed that the response that you give to that case study will almost be a culmination of your learning across the 12 or 18 months. And of course, we will support you with assessment briefings and whatever, so that you are very, very confident going into that case study. But we'll come back to that perhaps in a moment or two. And then just the average on the EL. Again, you can see we're now at 124 hours. The EL has 6 face-to-face days, and again, we'll go through this in a second, but just to highlight at the beginning of talking about EL, that those 6 face-to-face days include a 2-day conference, which is right at the beginning of that qualification. And just to say straight away that hotel, food and all that kind of thing is all included in the program. You don't need to finance that for yourselves at all. But we'll carry on now, because Laura's going to look at the areas of the framework areas that are covered in each of the Mpqs.
Thanks, Sally. So all 6 of the Mpqs are based on content areas. You'll hear that term a lot. And they each hold a series of learn that and learn how to statements, as Sally mentioned earlier. The content areas have been designed by the DFE, and they appear in the DFE's Mpq frameworks. Actually, I'm wondering, Tom, would you mind adding a link into the chat box, please, to the main Mpq frameworks page on the DFE's website? So thank you, that's brilliant. So the first table that you can see on the slide on the left-hand side demonstrates the leadership programmes. And on all of the leadership programmes, you will cover those 10 content areas over the 18-month period of your programme. On the table on the right demonstrates the specialist programmes. And as you can see, they each cover different content areas that are relevant to the specialism. However, they all do cover both teaching and implementation, and also professional development in some format, and they're highlighted in bold text just so that you can see where the links are. Again, that's really important for that golden thread of the career pathway that Sally referenced earlier. So LTD, Leading Teacher Development, has 4 content areas. LT, Leading Teaching, has 9, and LBC has 5. I would suggest don't be fooled by the fact that LTD and LBC have fewer content areas than LT. It's the same amount of rigour, the same amount of work involved in all 3 of them. So we have structured all of the programmes at best practice, both leadership and specialist routes, to cover all of their relevant content areas as indicated on the slide. And this is why the needs analysis at induction is so crucial, as you will all have really varying degrees of knowledge about each of the relevant content areas in the programme you undertake, given your different contexts. Some of you are going to have greater level of expertise in some from the beginning, and some you'll need to apply to your practice in greater depth through the course of the programme. The point is that the needs analysis and the LDR, the leadership development record, support you in using these content areas with relevance to you as individuals. That's really important. Also crucial is that underpinning all of these content areas is a very strong and clear evidence base and resource list in each framework. And we have worked really hard at best practice to link these to very specific school practice. And they'll be presented throughout the programmes to exemplify what the content areas look and feel like in practice, to really try to bring them alive for each of you in given context, and then to challenge you, again challenge, through various different kinds of activities to apply them with relevance to you and your schools. So this group of content areas has guided the way the programmes have been structured and designed. And this is the structure. So the way that the programmes ensure this level of access and relevance and choice that we've referenced for all of you comes back to the needs analysis again, and also to your initial application onto the programme. Both are critical because they're the first points of contact that we have with each of you to get to know you. And the content of them are going to influence how we group you, both online and in face-to-face events. So let us know about you and your leadership and your context through the application process and your needs analysis at induction. You'll see in the centre of the slide those 4 top boxes: face-to-face, online study, formative assessment tasks and coaching, which Sally referenced briefly earlier. These are the key elements of the development stage of all 6 programmes. You'll see that it says that they're repeated termly. That's because the model that we've used is a cyclical rotation. So when you've completed your induction, you'll go to your face-to-face event, then onto your online study, then you'll apply your online study in the workplace through practice activities and formative assessment tasks before being coached through feedback, support and challenge. We'll look at the cycles that this structure appears in a little bit more detail in a moment. But for now, you'll notice that each element is supported by enrichment activities. And it's really important to note that learning communities are a key part of this, which again comes back to the importance of your application so that we can place you with colleagues who you can learn alongside through levels of support and challenge. I'm just going to hammer home that's relevance, support and challenge for all of you. So each cycle looks a little bit like this. It starts on the left with you and your skills. It's followed then by the build of your knowledge and understanding through a face-to-face event, then on to building that in further depth through the online course and the practice activities and then the formative assessment tasks before again reviewing your learning. And this cyclical approach then repeats again and builds cumulatively into the next cycle. And that's really important. The entire programme is cumulative. So for the specialist programmes, there will be an induction cycle, then followed by cycles 1, 2 and 3. For the SL programme, there is the induction cycle followed by cycles 1, 2, 3 and 4. And then for H and EL, there are 5 cycles following the induction cycle. Really crucially, each cycle feeds the next to build your knowledge and understanding to the end point at summative assessment stage. You'll notice that there are loads of opportunities for review, discussions, feedback, all the way through the programme. And this is so that each element links through to your own self-regulation and metacognition about yourselves and your learning. And this is as well as the support and challenge from colleagues who will be supporting you in your progress, who Sally mentioned very briefly earlier. So just to be really specific about that, you'll notice the purple pink text in each box on the slide. That signposts coaches and mentors. Utilising that relationship will be absolutely incredibly important to the way best practice network encourages you and other participants to work. And it's vital to your success on the programmes. And we'll come to that a little bit more in a little bit more detail shortly. So we've gone from the overall pathway to unpacking a given cycle, and now onto this slide, which is the overarching delivery model, and it's particularly for the specialist programme LTD. We'll look at the other programmes in a moment. And Sally will actually take you through the leadership programme shortly. The delivery model illustrates the core body of knowledge that's going to take you that you will take from the programme, and the content areas are all represented there across all of those cycles that you can see on the slide. You'll see the induction cycle, the short course, Teaching Foundations and Principles. This is going to set the scene for contextualising the programme for each of you and reflecting on essentially who each of you are in terms of your role and your leadership. And crucially, this short course on the specialist route programme is based on the teaching content area from the ECF, which again shows that golden thread from the career pathway for teachers and leaders in schools. And that's to enable you to focus on your practice in relation to teaching. to then build it into your area of leadership within school through the rest of the programme, which is all then based on great teaching. So we talked to the last slide about the support and challenge you'll receive from colleagues, just a little bit more information on that. For those of you undertaking one of these specialist programmes, you will have an in-school performance coach, as Sally mentioned, nominated within school, as well as an online leadership mentor, which will be provided by Best Practice Network. And you'll also have a group of facilitators to support you through the face-to-face events. And I like the way Kylie referenced them as expert facilitators. They really are, they're experts in their field. And obviously those relationships are going to be vital to your success. So LT and LBC follow exactly the same structure as LTD, although they've got slightly different titles just to represent the context of each programme. So I'll just give you a moment to look at the Lte Delivery Model before we go on to the LBC one. Okay, this is the LBC Delivery Model. Obviously, when you get a hold of this recording, you can pause it to look at it longer if you need to. When you come to decide which specialist programme you want to choose for you, if you haven't already, it'll be really important to discuss it with your head teacher, because you need to consider together not only what your needs and aspirations are individually, but also the needs and aspirations of the school or hub more widely and how they work together. There's a load more information on the DFE website, which Tom has posted into the chat box. Thanks, Tom. About the specialist frameworks, just for you to get some detail about what each of them aims to achieve. I'm going to pass over to Sally now, just to draw out any points about the leadership programme specifically.
Okay, so the leadership programmes obviously follow that same kind of pattern. You'll notice that there are two short courses. So before we go into that cycle 1 face-to-face day, there's a short course there on improvement and implementation, much as there is across the specialist Mpqs. And then there is a short course too on ethical principles and leadership behaviours. Now, the ethical principles and leadership behaviours, neither of those actually appear in the DFE frameworks. But actually at Best Practice, we feel very, very strongly that if you don't know who you are as a leader, how are you best placed then to lead others? So that first part of cycle 1 very much hones into who am I? What makes me tick? What are my ethics? What do I believe about teaching? Because, you know, you in a school as a leader, you know, your values, your principles, your behaviours impacts hugely both on the staff in your team and you know, we work, don't we, through, alongside and with our staff team. So managing them, working with them is really, really important. But also that impact on your pupils, on the students. Those principles and understanding what makes us tick is really important. So that's something that Best Practice have put in because we believe very, very strongly that we need to have that element in all the leadership, well, all the Mpqs, but absolutely in those leadership Mpqs. So the full courses cover those 3 headings at the top. So leading culture and ethos, leading teaching, and then leading organisational effectiveness. And if we can go on to the next slide, then if we can, Laura, thank you. So you can see there how that then melds into the Mpqh. We've still got that short course at the beginning there, improvement and implementation, absolutely that work on ethical principles, leadership behaviours. You'll also see very similar elements to, as Laura said, coaching is a big element across the leadership Mpqs as well. So with Mpqh, there is group coaching as well as one-to-one coaching, as there is in EL and as there is in SL. Because again, this is about your journey, your individual journey through your particular MPQH and being well supported with that across your time. As I say, if the Mpqel, sorry, just to head that up again, that there are 2 days as a residential at the beginning of that course. And of course, a lot of it is about networking, but also to allow you time away in order to have a real deep learning opportunity without the normal distractions of the school day, as we know. All the MPQs, as we've said at the beginning, they all culminate in that summative assessment, which is that 2,500 word case study, which is unseen. You then have 8 days in which to respond to that case study, and you will write no more than 1,500 words. So that's the summative at the end. There are no projects. Okay, you know, you'll talk to colleagues and they'll say, oh, you're doing H, you're doing EL, you've got to do these big projects. No, you don't. Those projects have gone. What you do have are formative assessment tasks scattered across the days, and you'll see those. You'll have some choice about what they are. Again, if you think about that as small drips, practical, applying your knowledge within your context, within your setting. And of course, these are all, as I said at the beginning, they're all applicable whatever your setting. We have colleagues, of course, who are in international schools. We have colleagues who are in all through schools, special schools, nursery schools, whatever your setting. The course is absolutely applicable to you and your leadership journey. Okay, don't forget, we will have some time at the end for questions, and we will get through as many of those as we can. But I'm going to pass over now to Michelle, our sales director, who's going to go through fees, how it works, and applications. Michelle.
Thank you, Sally. First of all, thank you so much, Laura, Sally, and Kylie, for your fantastic insight and information there. It's really, really fantastic to hear. And I'm sure, like me, you're all wondering now, how much is this going to cost you, and how do you get onto program? Because it's all very exciting. So on your screen, you will see our program fees for non-scholarship within the UK. Now, just over a month ago, the DfE decided that they would let everybody within the state-maintained school have free access to the scholarship funding. So you can get scholarship funding for all of the Mpqs. So what a fantastic time to take up a program that you can get access to. Obviously, for our international colleagues, I've seen in the chat you're looking at your prices. These are not the same, and there are different prices for international. You can find those on the website, and I'm sure Tom will pop a link in there too, so that we can look at that. If for whatever reason you can't get scholarship funding, we do have lists of prices there. They do range depending on whether you're having a specialist or a leadership qualification. If you are within an independent school, or you want to look at other routes, then we also have a fantastic Mpq and apprenticeship route available. Laura, if you can go to the next slide. And this would then give you access to Mpqs through the apprenticeship levy, and therefore not having to spend money outside of the school budget. It's co-funding with the government or with the levy funding. So a really fantastic scheme. We've mapped 3 of our leadership Mpqs to an apprenticeship so that you have another access route for this. So our senior leadership is mapped against a level 5 operations departmental manager apprenticeship. So it's a dual qualification. Our Mpqh and Mpqel are both mapped into the senior leadership level 7 apprenticeship. So that's sort of a master's level apprenticeship route. So if you are looking for other routes, or you simply want to give yourself more of a challenge and look at another qualification that you can do at the same time, this is another fantastic opportunity for you to take part. We are actually having an apprenticeship webinar on the 8th of December. There is a link there. So if you are interested in further routes this way and other apprenticeships, please do join us. And it's a really good insight to how we can work together to make sure that we're getting you the best value and the best benefit for your school, whichever route that you decide to take. Our application process is a fairly simple one, and we would say that if you want to guarantee your places for our spring cohort, you do want to get onto the website as soon as possible and get your applications in prior to Christmas, because we do see a big surge around the festive period of people looking to jump on, and we will be looking at all of the information you've put on your application and then getting back to you within a few weeks. So it's a really simple process to get in. If you're not sure of any of the questions, we are here to support. If there's something you're not sure of in the application, you can give us a call and we will support you through that. But yeah, we're really excited to get you on board, ready for spring term. We've got hundreds already in autumn, so we can't wait to keep this going all throughout next year and see what it brings us and you as schools. So thank you, Sally and Laura. Back to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Michelle. So we're going to be, obviously we will send you these slides so that you can have those available to yourselves. There is a lot of information on the website, so don't hesitate to go and have a look there. Actually, there's some really, really useful little brochures. If you look to the right-hand side of the particular qualification web page, you'll see that there are like little brochures there, which are really, really good. Just give you a very, very clear run through of what the qualifications who they're for, what kind of level you should be at school in order to undertake one, the requirements and etc. So do that. Absolutely discuss what you want to do with your head teacher and or your school CPD lead. You know, your qualification has to be absolutely relevant for you and your experience level, but also to what your school needs and would like you to do as well. Absolutely always people there to help you with any queries. Just contact inquiries at Best Practice Co, or do ring us. We've put the bottom point there, apply sooner rather than later to avoid the last minute rush, because as always the DFE of course has made that wonderful announcement regarding funding, but just from previous experience in previous year when they've given scholarships, they are likely to perhaps then bring in a cap. So, you know, if you want to take advantage of the funding arrangements at the moment, then, you know, do put your application in sooner rather than later. So I think we're going to just take some questions now. So Tom, what have we got on the QA there?
Thanks guys, that was a lovely presentation, really in depth. So yeah, thank you so much. We have been inundated with questions. I've tried to answer a few, but people have been voting on their favorites. So if we take them from the top, actually quickly, what's really coming up a lot is the sharing of the slides and the videos. So tomorrow I'll format the video, I'll get the slides, and I'll send a big email to everybody who's attended. So everyone who's attended, we have your email, and tomorrow we'll get you a copy of this video and the slides. So yeah, don't worry about that. Okay, so the most popular question was, what is meant by a case study for Mpqlt? I think we touched on that, but is there any more depth we could give?
Laura?
If it's in reference to the summative assessment task, it's the same meaning for LT as it is for LTD, LBC, SLH and EL. Essentially, it's a case study for assessment at the end, which is what Sally was referencing. It's unseen. It will never be more than 2,500 words to read, and then your responses will be 1,500 words or up to, and you have an 8-day window at the very end of your programme to respond to that. And it will be, I just saw a question about, will it be specific to our contexts? No, it won't. It will be a generalised piece that everybody can respond to. If you, somebody else asked if you can resit, you can. You will be given a different case study at resit. So I hope that answers that question for that person who's asking about LT.
I think it does. So Lauren Way asks, where will face-to-face events take place?
Yeah.
I am in the West Midlands.
Yeah.
Sally is actually
Yeah.
part of our partnerships team.
So we have partners all over the country. We've got a very large number of partners. Some people will you will apply through your local hub, or when you put your application in, you'll note that you are within a particular hub area. What we then do, of course, is we will look at the amount of applications in an area, and if you have nominated a particular hub or a particular partner that we have, then obviously we will form a group with that partner. The only two differences for that is when perhaps we don't have enough in a particular area. So, if we only have 2 leading teacher applications in the Northwest, not going to happen, but say we did, then obviously we might ask them to join another group or a virtual group. Slightly different for Mpqh and Mpqel, which tend to be allocated much more on a national basis, because by dint of the qualification, there tend to be less applications in those 2 designations, and also very much about networking for those senior leaders. So it tends to be more regional groups for Mpqh and Mpqel, but all dependent on the amount of applications that we have at that particular time.
Great, thank you, Sally. The next question, we're back onto assessments. I think we've covered that, so we'll leave that one. Becca Rolfe, is the senior leadership course appropriate for an aspirational deputy that currently has very little whole school responsibility?
Absolutely, and it would encourage you to have that whole school view. If your next step is, you're looking that you will be doing more whole school, and as a deputy, that will become part of your role, then absolutely that senior leadership Mpq is the one for you.
Okay, great, thank you. This one's from an anonymous attendee. What about face-to-face events for international students?
Okay, so face-to-face events for international students currently are on Zoom, and they do work very well. We do try to group people, obviously, in very similar time zones, so that you're not. We haven't got people at disparate parts of the day, and they do work very well. Actually, as I say, I was doing one myself last week, and it was brilliant, really good.
Thank you, Sally. Robert Brown asks, how will local provision of training be made, and does your offering have any link to the new hub schools?
I think I've probably answered that one, and the answer is absolutely yes. Most of our hub partners and our partners have groups, whether they are, all the Mpqs or some of the Mpqs, and we work incredibly closely with them. They provide facilitators for their local groups, venues, and of course, we work, as I say, really, really closely with them on that.
Brilliant, thank you, Sally. Here's a question. How are in-school coaches chosen and supported?
Fantastic question.
That is a good question.
They'll be nominated within school based on a number of aspects, things like capacity to support, that sort of thing, their role within school. And they will either need to have some coaching experience and possibly a coaching qualification, possibly, or be interested in coaching colleagues, essentially. We will provide training and or recordings of training and a great deal of guidance into how to do that effectively. And essentially, that's one of the most popular parts of the programmes. So, yeah, great question. I'm really glad you asked it. Thank you.
Laura, should we just say that training is all free? Facilitator training is free and coaching training is free, because we want everybody to learn. So we support coaches with all that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sally.
Thanks both. Leslie Dixon asks, regarding specialist Mpqs, can teachers complete one specialist Mpq and then choose another specialist Mpq afterwards?
Fantastic question. Yes, you can. And if you're anything like me, you'll want to do them all. They're brilliant, actually. They're great programs. So yes, you can. Obviously, you wouldn't want to overlap those. But yes, and I think really what is the thing to consider is what's most appropriate for your role and your development within school, as well as for the school development, as to which one you do first and whether you have a gap between them or you do them consecutively. Completely up to you.
Lovely. Thank you, Laura. Sophie Mazaz, she says, I work in an international school that does not follow the national curriculum. Is the qualification focused on teaching in British schools or is it broader? Thank you.
Another one. Fantastic. Sally, do you want to take it or shall I?
I don't mind, Laura, you take it.
It's based on teaching and leadership best practice through the Best Practice Network. Essentially, it's nothing to do with British, English, or any other country in the globe. So it's from whatever context and perspective you arrive at when you start the programme. Sally, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would just say that obviously what you're undertaking in that training is leadership training, whether that is leading other teachers, leading their professional development, being a senior leader, a deputy head or assistant head in a school. So those are the skills, those are the attributes that we are training you on throughout the programme. And obviously there is research, the research is international research. So it's those skills, if you think about it, that we're delivering. So it's not specific to a particular curriculum. It's leadership skills that you will be learning.
Brilliant. Thank you again. Okay, this is just reshuffled for me. So top of the pile now is who would consist of an appropriate in-school mentor / coach? I think we've touched on that.
I think we've probably answered it, but again, it's back down to who is interested in supporting, who has capacity for support, and who's interested in coaching per se. And what's really important is the in-school performance coach is not a mentor. It's a very, very different function. It's a coaching role. The mentor is provided by Best Practice Network and functions online to give feedback and work in a slightly different way to the coach. So I hope that helps.
I think so. Okay, another one from an anonymous attendee. For specialist Mpqs that start in spring 2022, how are the face-to-face events spaced? Are they once a term, for example?
Great question. They are spaced equidistantly over the 12 months. They will never appear in a school break holiday. They're always in term time, and they're always for a full day. Depending possibly for international, sometimes they might be in 2 half days depending on time zones. But yeah, they're always equidistant, so roughly termly, yeah.
Great. I'll just add to that we've just released the qualification specifications, which Sally mentioned earlier, and they show the timetable, they show the breakdown and how things fit across either the 12 months or the 18 months. And those are on the website, and I'll share them with everyone in attendance when I share the video. So thank you both. How can we check if our school is funded? Maybe one from Michelle.
Thank you. If you are a state maintained school or have a provision for 16 to 19, so college, you will be funded, although we are happy to have a look for you. If you want to send a message with your school name and URN, I can get back to you just to double check.
Brilliant, thank you. I'll just have a quick time check. So it's 5:30. Would you be happy to answer a few more questions, Laura and Sally? Maybe another 5-10 minutes?
We're very happy. Yeah.
Of course.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks so much. We've still got 260 people, so I think it's worth flying through a few more. Do schools have to release you for any face-to-face meetings or online meetings if you are still working full-time?
Yes, I mean, obviously, one of the things about all the Mpqs is that there is a 90% compliance for attendance and completion of particular tasks. And the face-to-face days are the part of the qualification that there has to be 100% attendance at. If you can't you know, if there's a particular date that you can't attend, then you would just contact CPD at Best Practice and they would then apportion you to another day. But yes, face-to-face days have to be attended. And actually, if you think about it, if your school wants you to be successful, then and you know they're happy that you apply for the qualification, then hopefully they would be supporting you in that way anyway.
Thank you, Sally. One moment. So I am completing my master's at the moment, part-time over 2 years. Is this similar / the same? Would it be possible to link the two? How much work is involved?
Okay, so I often get this question from people actually. Mpqs are different to masters. Masters is very much more that research based. You've got a question that you're kind of following. I would say have a look at the Mpq curriculum, and I think you'll see it's quite different. There are a lot of opportunities for obviously the face-to-faces are very different, but it's also very much based in practice, you know, what you're going to do tomorrow, very practical activities and practical thinking, as well as those people that I know who have done a master's and Mpqh have found it very beneficial to do both. But have a look at the curriculum yourself and see if it fits what you need.
Great, Sally, thanks. I might just add that the specialist Mpqs are each worth 30 credits at master's level, as is Mpqsl, and I think Mpqh and Mpqel are both worth 60 master's credits.
Yeah.
So it's a great springboard if you'd later like to start a master's. We'll do a couple more and then we'll leave it. This is from another anonymous attendee. I am completing my master's at the moment. We've just done that one. One moment. I started the course Mpqsl last year, but I have not completed. Can I continue with the new framework?
Okay. So the answer to that, unfortunately, is no, because the two iterations of the Mpqs are very different. But if you want to resume and finish, then I would suggest you get in contact with CPD at Best Practice quickly. If you did your SL through us. Because once that framework has finished, then obviously that's done and that's gone, and you wouldn't really want to start doing the whole qualification again. So I would contact Best Practice, obviously, if it was ourselves or your provider, whoever you studied with on that.
Thank you, Sally. So someone's got their hand up. Charity Yearwood, I'm not sure if I can allow you to talk. I'm going to attempt to. Please be polite. Hello, Charity. Can you hear us? No. Okay. Okay, we'll leave that. Sorry, Charity. Leave your question in the Q&A and we'll get to it. So we're going to miss a lot of questions, unfortunately, but I'll make a note of them and yeah, we'll include a Q&A when we share the video. Okay.
Can I just say then, thank you so much to everybody who has attended today. Thank you very, very much to Kylie for coming along and contributing, and Laura, and from Laura and myself, we hope to see you in front of us when we are facilitating. Get those applications in. We look forward to working with you, and thank you so much for your interest today, and have a lovely evening. Take care.